So my emotions are acute, but now I realize that I have to actually control my emotions to a certain degree so that emotions are reactions to anything that happens to you.
Mm-hmm.
And if it generates emotion, it's meaningful to you. Now, is the emotion negative or is it positive? That depends on your own feeling about yourself. The more you love yourself and care about yourself, the more you can love others and care about them.
Yeah.
And so you can't do that without loving yourself. And I can't love myself because I'm not good enough. As I realize that this is my own stupidity and my own lack of perceiving correctly, I realize that I can control more of that. And I should control more of that. I should center my emotions on the positive rather than on the negative. So becoming more positive in general makes everybody around you feel comfortable around you because you're centering on the positive. You're not so critical of things you don't like. Even politically, things happening so much in this country right now. If you over-focus on one thing, you neglect all the others. Mm-hmm. So I've been overly focused on politics myself because of what has happened in the last administration and what we're still going through now. That's just an example of how you can get diverted, how life throws you these curves, and you're paying attention to things that don't matter in the long run, or that do matter, but you can't change anything personally, so you need to redirect your attention on things personal that do matter to you.
Yeah, the things we have control of.
Yes.
Yeah, and I would also say, like, what I'm hearing from you, and this is my own lens, is the emotional intelligence piece is becoming stronger. Because, I tried to talk about emotional intelligence one time, and I had a lot of people on an angry TikTok. They were men.
Yeah.
Because I was talking about, there's this call for men to be more emotionally intelligent, and I think it's a beautiful thing. But I don't know if they just didn't understand the term. But they were like, oh, stop trying to make men like women and all this stuff. And they were yelling at me. Like, I mean, granted, it was through text. But I was just like, wait a minute. Emotional intelligence isn't about crying. It's not about having these big feelings and being, whatever they perceived. Emotional intelligence is the ability to understand your emotions. Mm-hmm. And instead of acting out, you're processing them before you're reacting. Instead of reacting, it's that space. It's holding that space and going, wait a minute, what is that? It's
honoring your emotions to the point where you're saying, okay, what do I learn from this? Even a negative emotion has a learning purpose behind it. So learn something. Don't let it keep happening without learning things will keep happening to you if you don't learn the steps, right? You're going to keep learning.
It's a pattern.
Things are going to throw back until you learn the lesson of that, and then you'll be able to learn the lesson the next time easier.
Yeah, because those patterns are familiar.
Patterns are familiar, and I want to get back to what you said about men versus women, especially young. Girls are held and cuddled more than touched more than boys. Boys are more aloof. They don't want to, the parents will hug them and they're kind of, okay, I'm beyond that now, that kind of thing. Boys are taught they're responsible for sexual touch.
Yeah.
That's your social responsibility. Girls, not so much. But girls are touched more than boys. So boys need the touch, want the touch, but then distort it.
Yeah.
And so you can then have a sense of sex being more about control or about, negative emotions or something associated with sex that are turn-ons to you rather than just loving the person and like having the sensual touch versus the sexual touch. Both are needed and both are connected and both need each other.
Yes.
But so if you have sex without the love, it's good, but it's not the best. Of course, it's much better with love. It's not even a question. So I don't even think a lot of couples have that kind of relationship. They just don't have the sensual and sexual touch
Yeah.
together.
Well, I think it's also that self-awareness piece.
Yes.
But I love that I think it's just important to hold this space for a minute, because as a woman who's been single for 11 years, I have been sexually objectified. I mean, it is beyond, I'm just done. But I hold this space because we have a culture that does this.
Yeah.
As you were saying, baby boys are not held as much as women or as little girls. That's a problem. That's a problem, because as human beings, touch is a necessity. Touch help us feel safe. It can help our our nervous system and our immune system be equal. And so I just want to hold that space, because again, as a woman who's been dating, and it's just been really hard, because I do hold that space for men. And then there's also that part of how can I help shift the conversation or hold space so that we can create a different culture. Because I can be as angry as I want. I can lash out at all these men. I can do that, but it's not going to change. And guess what? It's because they're reacting upon what they know. And and they have to be in that space also to be open enough to receive or even think about my ability to help them become aware, because that's what's happened in my 11 years of dating. It's maybe I've ended up being and I'm not a therapist. I'm just naturally curious about people, because I know what it's like to need to feel loved and seen and stuff. So I want to offer that to people who come into my space, because I know what it's like to not feel enough. Yeah. So I try to offer that space, and I've met many men. In my book, you'll be able to read it if anybody is interested in that as it comes out. But I've really met an amazing amount of men who desired to be in that space because they felt safe. So Thank you. I think it's so important.
Well, there's another thing that's you brought to mind for me. Me not being a woman, women have it harder in one sense, because they're held so much and touched so much as young, and they're sexual objects.
Oh, constantly.
And so men like to touch women, and women like to be touched by men. It's a sexual thing, and they're viewed in a sexual way with touch way differently than men are. So men are not used to that, and yet women then will start to lose that as they get older.
Yeah.
That sexualness starts to fade away a little bit, and then what do you have? You're not seen as a sexual object anymore, and then that's depressing. And
I don't know. I would love to not be at this point. I'm like, can you just see me as a human? Like,
I'm not talking about you directly.
I know, but I'm just like, in my own experience, I'm like, oh my gosh, like I think maybe twice in the last 11 years has any man ever said, like, you're so intelligent, or you're such a creative person. It's always been, you're sexy, you're gorgeous. It's always been a physical compliment.
Because it's the first interest of a man when they first are.
I think it's the same for women though too.
It is. But you see how that can take you down a different road.
Yeah.
And so I think awareness then still is aware of your feelings and why you're feeling this or that. Yeah. And don't blame yourself for different phases of your life. You're supposed to be having different phases of your life and concentrating on different things.
Yeah.
So I don't criticize people that are working to not work on themselves enough, because I couldn't.
Oh yeah.
I was too busy to think and use all this information to better my own life, when I should have and could have, and it would have been more effective.
Maybe if not.
So I'm kicking myself in the back end, going, why didn't I know this earlier and apply this earlier? I had the knowledge.
Because you weren't ready.
I wasn't ready.
And I think that's important. As a peer support, I did work in mental health for many years, and it is very different as a peer support specialist, because we're hired off of our lived experiences, and we meet people where they're at. And there are so many times when I'm working alongside of other community, partners, whether it's a therapist or, just certain people, whether it's sometimes, juvenile detention centers, because I worked in a specific area, and they just wanted me to get the parents to do something, or they wanted me to, and I'm like, that's not my job. It's not my job. I meet people where they're at. People need to be seen and heard and loved and accepted exactly where they're at. And they need somebody to hold that space. Because for me, that is when I got my power, is when somebody was like, and shared with me what was inside of me, and I had no idea. So it was like, people need that. We need to be loved because, again, as you were saying, you were seeking for acceptance your whole life.
Yeah, and I think all of us have the exact same needs.
Yeah.
And we're here to experience life and to actually grow. And we're all humans are learning sponges. And all we are is perceptions. All we have is our five senses, to go by, some say six.
Yeah.
And I think I'm developing more of a sixth sense that I had before, because this is the more intuitive nature.
That's the gut instinct.
Of things. Your gut instinct. And always I've shunned that, thinking, my mind is better than my gut. But my gut's more accurate than my mind.
Well, they actually have found scientifically our brain is actually in our gut.
Exactly.
Isn't that fascinating?
Exactly.
Like, I can't explain it to you, but just so you know, they're finding that the brain is actually...
They both release serotonin. They both release brain hormones, that feel-good hormones. They're both related to emotions.
Yeah.
And we're all emotional creatures.
Oh, 100%.
So the more emotional you are, the more intuitive you are, I think, you're more compassionate, you're more empathetic to others. The more trauma that you've gone through in your life, the more, like, after I went through my divorce, I'm a lot more conscientious of other people going through divorce.
Yeah.
When someone's going through a divorce, I actually take time and listen and want to talk to them, because I was hurt so much by that.
Yeah.
That I know that they're hurting bad because I hurt bad during that time.
That's that peer support. That's that lived experience.
Yes.
Because until you have an experience, you truly can't have that. And you can learn empathy, but when you go through an experience, it gives you that firsthand knowledge of what it could be like.
And go ahead.
I was just gonna say, let me also give you this thought too, because I know I heard you say I was kicking myself because I didn't do it earlier. But here's the other thought about our brain. We cannot create space to move forward if our brain is not in a safe space. And maybe it has been in a safe space, but it might not have felt like that.
Yeah.
Because learning new skills or coming to a space of being able to do self-reflection and self-awareness, actually our brains need to, be in a calm state. Our body does. So it's like I always thought I was just dumb, right? Like, I mean, I know that sounds mean, and I'm not trying to be mean, but in high school, I don't remember anything. What did I learn? I didn't learn anything. But then I realized, as an adult who's learned about trauma and stuff, like, I couldn't take in new information because I was living in chaos. And so as an adult who just loves reading, mostly psychology and stuff, but all of that stuff, like, I'm completely intelligent, but I thought I was just dumb because I couldn't take in anything. So it just helped me to realize when our body, our space, even with COVID, right? So people living in COVID, we all had it the last 2 years. I mean, the collective space of COVID, that itself is a collective trauma, and it might be different for everybody. But if you are experiencing the feelings of trauma inside our body, the ability to learn new skills is pretty minimal.
Yeah.
So it's like, we're just in that space.
Yeah. And a lot of us aren't using the skills we have because we're not aware of our skills. And that's another thing that awareness brings, is what are you really good at? One of the persons that was so instrumental in changing my whole focus around was my ex-brother-in-law, Nathan Church. He was PhD in sociology and psychology. And he's now a consultant, and he's still working in this field. And he was influenced greatly by Carl Jung.
Oh, yeah.
Jung, which was very, very instrumental to me. And I started reading Carl Jung.
Me too.
And his books, and I am just fascinated by him. And the more I read about him, the more I relate to him personally.
Yeah.
And I think he's got so many insights that were just incredible. So all this started me thinking, and also my ex-brother-in-law gave me information about my ex-wife and myself, and said I had PTSD and that I had signs and symptoms of someone with that. Through this, I discovered that I was molested by my uncle, which I didn't know about. It was a repressed memory, and that came back.
Yeah.
And as I went through treatment, which was biofeedback therapy.
Oh, yeah.
That, right, kind of balanced out my brain hormones and chemicals, and started helping me see things in perspective more. Yeah. So again, when you're hurting, like you said earlier, you don't see things clearly. You see things from your perspective, which is very, very hard on yourself. It's not the real thing. It's not the real truth. It's not reality. It's your perception of reality, which is mainly wrong, usually wrong. And usually because it's the worst you can think of.
What was carved out by our childhood experiences.
That's right.
The fact that you just wanted your dad so much to give you that acknowledgement and that love, and he didn't. That created, the inability to see yourself as lovable.
Well, the importance of the younger years from 0 to 7 are unbelievably important, and that will create non-criminals versus criminals.
Yeah.
That will create social people versus non-social people. That will create either a good society or a dysfunctional society. And our society's dysfunctional. It's dysfunctional big time because we categorize everybody. We put each other in a male versus female role, and females are second-class citizens, even more so now.
Yeah.
You don't have the same rights as we do.
Oh, yeah.
We can do it everywhere we want with our bodies, and you can't.
Yeah.
We make more money than you. We're more intelligent than you. We hold positions of power, and you don't so much.
Yeah.
Worldwide, it's changing in different cultures.
Yeah.
Not so much here.
Yeah.
We're behind the thing, and we're behind it because of this conflict between right and left, this conflict between liberal and conservative, this constant conflict that keeps us fighting and warring amongst ourselves. So we lose the perspective of all life.
Yeah.
It's the perspective of treating each other with love and respect and kindness, and as if you're me and I'm you.
Yeah.
This is treat everybody as you'd like to be treated. It's the golden rule. It's if we all did that, we'd be living in heaven.
Yeah. Well, and I from my perspective, yes, we are constantly like, there's those two sides or three or whatever they do. But here's the thing that I've learned. Every person comes to a situation as themselves. So if people are not aware of how they're showing up to spaces, it can create chaos, right? So that's the self-awareness piece, because whether or not, I don't even know what party I'm at anymore. I just want to see people
focus on truth and love.
Yes.
Focus on cooperation. Focus on giving people more rights, not taking them away from one group versus another group.
Yes.
You focus on positive feelings and intentions rather than on negative. And if we did that, we'd all be feeling a lot better about ourselves. We demonize ourselves because we see each other as enemies, and you have to. That's why countries that go to war, like Russia and Ukraine right now, they're demonizing each other to where one is a Nazi and the other is the Nazi aggressor occupier, right? They're both Nazis in each other's point of view, in a sense.
Yeah.
They both demonize each other and dehumanize each other to the point where they can kill each other.
Yeah.
You can't kill each other otherwise unless you dehumanize that other person.
Yeah.
And culturally, we've dehumanized different groups.
Yes. Oh,
the
completely.
LGBT, the black people versus the minorities versus the immigrants versus the asylum seekers.
Yeah. And we're all humans.
And we're all humans with the same needs and the same desires, the same wants, and the same care for our kids and wanting to make a better world, not a worse world. But we're coming at it from different perspectives, from different belief systems and different senses that we're picking up from the world.
Right. And we can't solve an argument by yelling back and forth. This is where the self-awareness piece is huge, because we're not going to change somebody's perspective. We can't. What we can do, though, is offer questions, offer curiosity, offer our safety.
Another thing we're taught not to do in this society.
Yeah.
So More so, I'm a question asker. I ask questions all the time. Too many, most people say, because you're too nosy. No, I just want to get to know you.
Curious.
And I'm curious enough to know, I want to know you well enough to where I can relate to you.
Yeah.
And I can relate to you, and then I can notice when you're upset or why you're upset and so on. I can be your friend better. Some people don't want that. Some people feel
Threatened?
uneasy or
Yeah.
threatened by it.
Yeah.
So they want to hold their distance. They have a certain space they feel comfortable at that, based on how you were treated when you were a child.
Exactly.
So much of this relates to that. So let's concentrate on those years and we'll fix most of society.
Oh gosh, yeah.
But we don't. We do the opposite. We chuck our old out the window.
Yeah. We're starting that here in Lane County though, and it's called 90 by 30. So the goal of 90 by 30 is to decrease child abuse by 90% by the year 2030. And it's...
I've never heard of this.
Well, and it's something that it's a great initiative. It's been going on for a number of years now. I've been part of it in my past work. But slowly they're integrating like skills of empathy into, kindergarten, first grade, second grade.
Oh, good.
There's programs that are being developed right here in Lane County, and it was actually kind of not mimicking, but written after, I don't know the word, my brain's going, after a program in Australia that did this back, I believe, in the late 90s. So they've already done this work, and so their, child abuse is extremely low over there. But yes, there are things going on. It's just people don't necessarily know and talk about it. But it's like that key piece of empathy and curiosity. Curiosity is vulnerability, and curiosity is also critical thinking skills, and we need more of that.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And another key to this, to me, is like when we're children, we ask a lot of questions when we're kids.
Always.
Why is the sky blue? And most parents don't know the answer, or they give some lame answer.
Just because it is.
Or they'll have the right answer, but whatever. And depending on their knowledge and their ability. But the point is, their questions are encouraged.
Yeah.
But at a certain point, questions aren't encouraged anymore. Mm-hmm. Pretty soon, you just have to accept what you're told.
Yeah.
This is the wrong way to do things. And I want us to concentrate back again to being held and loved as a child.
Yeah.
I read this book on touch. This book on touch was so meaningful because I realized that they went around to all the cultures of the world. Carl Jung did this.
Oh, okay.
He went around to different cultures of the world and he saw what they had in common, what they didn't have in common. They were all spiritual, but in a non-religious spiritual way. It's like spiritism rather than a particular God that they must follow rules and stuff.
Yes.
It's nature. It's this feeling that if we mimic nature, we can only do good things with that, or we should do good things with that, and we do. We are flying airplanes. It was basically from mimicking birds and seeing how the wingspan guided the air over and under their wings. When we realized that, we realized how we could do it ourselves, and we could mimic a bird. So we're watching nature and learning so much about our new
environment,
new environments and new technologies and things like that develop from that. So this is a good thing, and when we're conscientious of that, we're respectful of the other creatures on earth.
Yeah.
We're respectful of each other. We're respectful of all life.
Yeah.
We want to do whatever we can to enhance this planet, not to make it worse. It's our only home. We don't have any other place to go that we know of. And so we have to take care of it. So be conscientious about what we have. Don't mistreat it. Don't garbage it. Look at our oceans. We're killing it and us.
Yes.
So we have to focus on all together, what do we all have in common? And what are all of our needs that we all want and love?
Yeah.
Let's focus on that and get back together because it's the same thing. The left wants the same thing the right wants.
Yes.
The rich countries want the same thing as the the poor countries want the same thing as the rich countries.
Yeah.
It doesn't go so much the other way because they don't have food, they don't have resources because they're taken from them by the rich countries.
Of course.
So again, it's the imbalance of greed, the imbalance of selfishness.
Yeah.
So if we get rid of those negative emotions and fill it with positive emotions, the whole world's better off.
Yeah. And it starts with ourselves.
That's right.
Yeah.
So changing our world and everything around us is the best way each of us have by changing the whole world. We can't just try to change the whole world in and of itself. Like, I'm going to get out in the streets and vote for women, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to hold a sign there, but that can't be just it.
Yeah.
You got to then focus on what you can influence.
Yeah, and you have to figure
Your
out
friends
how
and relatives
you're
and
showing
people
up to
around
the
you.
space.
That's right.
What does that look like and stuff?
Yeah.
Curt, let's close here. It is awesome. It is such a great conversation. And just reiterating what he was talking about is all comes back to self-awareness. It comes back to, being in the space and showing up with kindness and curiosity and, open your heart, be vulnerable and, be kind to one another. Curt,
And everybody read the Four Agreements. I think that is an awesome book.
Yes, well, I can put a link to that if I remind myself. I'll put a link to that in the video as well as Carl Jung.
Oh, I think he was fantastic.
Yes, and Dr.
Really?
Mate as well. He's again one of my favorite, and of course I love Brene Brown. But Dr. Mate is he's just somebody who's changed my entire life, really, because he just helped me.
He's another one I'm going to be doing a lot of listening to and reading some of his books too. I haven't read any of those books yet.
Oh yeah, so good.
He's written 4, I think, hasn't he?
Oh, I think he's releasing another one.
He's got another one
coming out, and I can't remember the name of it. Sorry, Dr. Mate, if you by chance ever watch this. But what I love about Dr. Mate is he talks that anybody can do the work he's doing. It's just like you have to do your own work and then you have to share it with other people.
And he does it in a Socratic method where he asks questions and then you give him.
And then I'll fix it real fast. Okay, the camera went off, so we need to stop. Have a beautiful day. Thanks for coming to Coffee Talk with Brandy. Don't forget to hit subscribe.